Since the fall of man, a war has raged between good and evil. Over the centuries, this war has distorted the truth. Now the truth is perceived as lies, and lies acknowledged as truth. To this day, the battle continues as we investigate and debate the truth behind the history and mystery of the universe. We are Paratruth Radio.
The U.S. government. Are they corrupt or just misunderstood? Trustworthy or hardly worth trusting? Regardless of how you answer these questions, there's one that you may be unsure of how to answer. Is our government willing to conduct secret, harmful experiments at the expense of civilian life? Now Paratruth presents The Case of the MK Ultra Program.
How's it going, Parafans? Welcome to a brand new episode of Paratruth Radio right here on the Paratruth Radio Network. And it's a brand new week. We're so happy to be with you guys every week that we are. So, Eric, to start out, how's the week been? How did the festival go?
It went good. The festival had a few change of plans. Almost didn't make it to the festival because my original team backed out of the festival, and so I didn't have a team. And luckily, I had some friends around that needed some extra help, so ended up going down to the festival anyway. Ended up writing the script for the for the team, which is great because that wasn't my job originally.
Right.
I was going to, I ended up doing electric and grip work, which is basically setting up lights and all the shadows and stuff like that, making sure that's right. Also did, which I'm not credited for, but also did special effects, which is all practical stuff on set.
Oh.
Mostly doors opening and shutting, stuff like that, by an unseen force, basically. And then it was kind of cool because I wanted to write. We actually had a theme of horror, so it worked out in my favor. And I got there, and the director and one of the other lighting guy that was working with me, they decided to write the script. And so they went in the back room for about 3 hours, wrote out an entire story, wrote a rough script, read it to us, didn't understand it, so we read it ourselves, still didn't understand it. Our director got a little frustrated and he couldn't think straight, and I threw out a couple ideas. He's like, "Do you want to just take over?" It's like, "Yes, I do." So I sat down at the computer, and my original plan was to just basically polish his script and make it stronger. In 2 hours, I completely rewrote the entire script. It wasn't the same at all.
Well,
but it was better. It was better, though. It worked. He came back in, the director came back in, as well as the rest of the team. I read it to them, and not a single complaint. They thought it was great, so it worked out. It kind of stinks because with a film festival like this, you have to make a film that's only about 4 to 7 minutes long. So my script, it was a little, let's just say it was a little much for 48 hours, to film. So we had to cut out a few things, and the final film is only about 5 minutes long. It doesn't do the script any justice. But luckily, I think the team is going to go back, do some pickup shots, and the film will then be extended from about 5 minutes to 15 minutes, which is what the script will really need to be fully. But it's good. Don't get me wrong. We spent 10 hours filming. It's basically 11 p.m., 12 p.m. till 10 o'clock at night. And for what we got in 10 hours, it's probably up in the top tier of the films that have gotten done. So we'll see. How about you?
You guys didn't get to hear any announcements as to the winners yet, or?
No, actually, so it turns out, because I thought, according to the website of the 48, sorry guys, I'm trying to get this camera just right, because I nowhere where I put it, I don't like it. According to their website, it's supposed to premiere at their premiere festival or whatever a few days later. Turns out that they're pushing it to 2 weeks later, so then it's not premiering to August 27th. But at least then everyone will be able to see it.
Yeah.
Yes, it looks semi-amateur, but you know what? You try making a film in 48 hours. It's ridiculous. That was probably the not most exhausting, but it was difficult. And I got to see it, I almost didn't get to see it, and they ended up sending it to me via email so I can check it out. So watched it a few times. It's pretty good. What about you? What's up?
Just been getting ready to start working. I actually am starting to get some ideas for a couple contests, writing contests that are going on right now that are due by September. So I'm going to start getting those written onto paper in my computer or whichever, so that way I can get them submitted. One is the one that I had talked to you about, which is the Armageddon type settings, and then there's another one that I saw that is a superhero theme, but not in their prime days. It's more about how they grow up, how they deal with growing old, how they deal with everyday life, trying to fit in. Can they fit in? So it's going to be an interesting concept.
There's it's interesting because I'll talk to you after the show. I don't want to say it on here. I could, but I'm thinking right now whether or not I should. But you know what? I can probably point you to some inspiration, because a professor of mine, who's actually the same age as I am, is doing like a small. He did a series, season 1 series, basically internet series, based on superheroes and what they do in their off time. It's like this battle between the mechs, which are all the mechanical type superheroes, the ones that are like your Iron Man and your Batman, so on and so forth, and then those that are superheroes who actually were born with superpowers or somehow had them, and there's like this battle. But I don't know, I can't even think of the name of it offhand right now, so I can't mention it, but that's something, you might want to look into. Also, it kind of lines right up with my Batman fan film that I just wrote. So it's actually pretty sweet, man. I'm looking forward to that one. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it just the way that it's laid out, I'm like, yeah, I'll have to do this, because I've loved superheroes since I was a kid, so I have enough knowledge up here to at least know what they would be like in their prime time. So to decipher what they would be like, you have to make up your own superhero, but
right,
pretty easy.
This guy right here.
No, that you would be the after.
What is that supposed to mean?
After their superhero days, in their older years.
That's sad. That's just sad. You know what? We're going to move on from this topic. Because now I'm sad.
Depressing, Eric.
Folks, for those of you just joining us for the first time ever, my name is Eric.
And I'm Justin.
And you are listening to Paratruth Radio. We kind of missed that part at the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, well, they should know us by now if they've been watching.
They should, if they've been watching. That's why I just said, for those of you who are tuning in for the very first time ever.
Or listening.
Congratulations. Or listening, yes. Congratulations. You've made it to the most awesome show ever in history of mankind and beyond.
So tonight, folks, we've got a new topic that, like I said last week, we usually don't touch on these types of topics, but it's about Project MK Ultra. And the reason I wanted to do this, which if you guys saw the Facebook video at all, it was because I saw a mention of MK Ultra in the adult cartoon series known as Archer, and then the Netflix original known as Stranger Things is actually based on the MK Ultra projects. So a little bit about MK Ultra. MK Ultra started in the 1950s. Specifically, it was formulated in 1953 and then started to be put into place by 1955, and roughly ended around 1973 because they kind of started and then stopped to get the hype off of them, because there was starting to get a lot of heat from the government, and then they started again to continue their operations. So a little bit about it is that they were experimenting on sometimes knowing, sometimes not knowing, mostly not knowing individuals in different colleges, different science laboratories, and they were using different drugs and different types of what's the word I'm looking for? Deprivation techniques to try and find a correct way to break people down, mostly in interrogations, but it kind of went further than that. A little bit about what you found on this.
Well, these unwitting citizens, and those who even did know, I don't think quite understood what they were getting into. This whole thing of MK Ultra used numerous methodologies to manipulate people's mental states and to alter their brain functions. And they would often use a bunch of different drugs, one of which was LSD, but they'd also use other chemicals as well, which, is just, I know a lot of people are out there on the whole chemtrail thing, which, I don't believe in, but the fact that the government here is using different chemicals and was using different chemicals for this program is pretty interesting. But they would also use hypnosis and different types of deprivation and sexual abuse and verbal abuse, various other forms of torture, to be asked me, especially when it comes to, torture is pretty bad to begin with, folks. I know there's statements that have come out from the government saying that they do not use torture to get information, while other statements have come out and said they do use torture to get information. Especially, you think of recent times since the 9/11 attacks. People have questioned whether or not those being arrested for terrorism were being tortured to get more information. We as citizens don't really know. We can speculate. But the fact that this program that the CIA was using, that they were using and developing, did include different forms of torture is pretty interesting, and pretty much tells us the possibility of to what extent our government is willing to go. Since 1973, a lot of these cases were completely classified. We had nothing to go on. It was all speculation. There were hints about this program having been taken up at one point, and of course eventually dismantled. But it wasn't until July of 2001 that some surviving information regarding the MK Ultra program was actually declassified and hence released to the public, basically. And there are areas where you can go ahead and jump on and check out some of these declassified documents. And I think none of them are probably, they're good, but I think there's many missing documents that would have shed a whole lot more light on this whole subject matter. But it raises a lot of questions, because even to this day, we hear about the government testing things at Area 51. I can't remember when it was last that I had told. I said it on the air probably a year ago now. It's been a while. But a buddy of mine who's in the military had vaguely explained. He had told me that he had heard from another buddy that he trusted that there was some kind of experimentation going on at Area 51 in the area of Nevada, and that one of the test subjects, or several, had gotten out, and that an alarm had gone, not like an actual siren alarm, but a message has gone out to all the authorities around town that if they were to see them or any civilians were to see any animals with glowing eyes, that they were to put them down immediately via firearms. So if that's a true story, obviously the government's still testing on subjects, and what this testing it consists of, we don't know. It could be simply mind control type stuff like the MK Ultra program. It could be far and beyond that. We could be talking about some serious weird stuff like splicing alien DNA into human DNA, or animal DNA to create some kind of hybrid. And I've heard stories of the possible testing of super soldiers and how to make soldiers go longer in the field without food and without sleep and be stronger and faster, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, whether or not these things are all true or not, we don't know. But, I think back in, was it World War II, I believe, is when MK Ultra is really being taken up. And there were a couple of other MKs going on as well. One was known as MK Naomi and another is MK Delta. And I don't have as much information on those things, but I do know that at some point during this MK Ultra program, they had brought in some old officials of Nazism who were arrested once upon a time, and allowed them to come in to help in teaching the government how to use mind control and to their expense or success, so.
Well, one thing that we really have to look at is this was by the CIA. Now, the CIA has been a controversial piece of our defense, if you will, against outside sources for quite a while. But they've also been scrutinized for the numerous experiments that they've supposedly done, their Black Ops projects, and it's one of those things that you really have to wonder why they would go this far to do that. And the only reason they would look into this is, the end of World War II was 1943. They had gotten scientists from Nazi Germany to come to our side. So, was it us pushing them, do you think? Do you think it was the other way around, where they were suggesting these other types of ways of getting people to, not necessarily mind control, but interrogation techniques?
Are you talking about whether or not the Nazi scientists pushed us, or whether...
What do you think? Was it us pushing them to give us answers, or do you think they were suggesting stuff to us after we asked for their help?
I think it's the latter, because I think what was happening is MK Ultra. Well, during this program of MK Ultra, the CIA was probably trying to look into how exactly to manipulate the mind, and they had known that the Nazis had already been working on it for several years prior, probably, and therefore that's why they called in the scientists. My guess is that they gave them some kind of leeway, some kind of shorter imprisonment terms, or checked off the lists of being on the wanted list and stuff like that. It's unfortunate, but the government does that on occasion when certain information is given, maybe a lesser degree of punishment, if you will, for their crimes. And so I wouldn't doubt at all that America knew what was going on. The government knew what was going on over in Germany. And when they started getting stuck, they wanted to get to where the Nazis already were, and so they brought them in to help out, basically, on the techniques of understanding mind control, I guess.
Okay. Well, and that's one thing that a lot of people question is, how can the government do this to, U.S. citizens? It's been going on for more than people realize. All right, folks, we're going to take our first break here. You've been listening to Paratruth Radio right here on the Paratruth Radio Network. We will be right back with MK Ultra, but first, Eric's Random Fact of the Day.
Now, Eric's day.
Did you know that Mexican scientists turned a shot of tequila into diamonds? According to news.bbc.co.uk, the amazing discovery was made by physicists from the National Autonomous University of Mexico and could have many industrial uses. There is one catch, however. The synthetic diamond crystals are too small to be turned into jewelry. Mexico produces hundreds of millions of liters of tequila every year. Annual sales to the U.S. alone are worth about $500 million. The head of the scientific team, Miguel Apatica, explained to the BBC how they came up with the discovery. He said, "First of all, we turn the liquid tequila into vapor by using a lot of heat. The gas molecules are then broken up into tiny particles. We then increase the heat even further to around 800 degrees Celsius. The end result is that we get carbon atoms, which are then deposited in the shape of a very thin diamond film. The synthetic diamond crystals can only be seen under an electron microscope. Although they cannot be used for jewelry, there are plenty of practical applications for them. They can be used as an alternative to silicon in computer chips or as ultra-fine cutting instruments in medical procedures. One advantage to making diamond film from tequila is that it is extremely cheap. The scientists found that even the cheapest tequila brands, averaging at around $3 a bottle, are plenty good enough to make diamonds."
This was Eric's random fact of the day.
All right, folks, welcome back to Paratruth Radio. My name is Justin.
And I'm Eric.
And we've been discussing the Project MK Ultra. And what we're basically finding right now is that supposedly this ended in 1973. And it was exposed a little bit in 1977 when the U.S. government started looking into this, into the CIA's programs. And one thing that I had brought up in my Facebook post video is that, is this going on now? One thing we brought up last week is the possibility of civil war forming because of a certain president pushing for that. We also talked about Black Lives Matter movements, which actually has escalated in the past week with people killing other people over this Black Lives Matter movement. In your opinion, do you think that the MK Ultra project could have influenced these things that are coming today, or is the MK Ultra project still in effect and that's why these things are going on? What do you think about that?
I don't know if the MK Ultra movement is still, or program is still in effect, but I can tell you for a fact that the media, in a sense, does do their own type of mind control. When you look at the media, for one, which is interesting, is that the majority of media are very democratic by nature. Even whenever you see like the current candidacy, regardless of who's running, the media is always going to be on the side of the Democrats because they're left wing. That's just simply what they do. They're always left sided. But we'll notice that in America, how often do we ever hear good things happening on the news? It's always murder, it's always rape, it's always drug busts, it's always this, always that. And they do anything in their power to build rage in the country because what does it do? It creates more media. And the more media there is for the media to share, the more money they're going to make off of it. And I truly think that our current state right now that America is in is fully due to the news networks and the media that's the news networks and the networks that are broadcasting that media from whatever source it's from. Same thing with Facebook, and it's been going on for years. When we were kids, how many girls wanted to look like the next supermodel or like Britney Spears or this or that? There's always something in some way that the media is telling us we should be, or who we should be, or how we should be. And so there's always this sense of mind control. That's why commercials, for example, they tell you why you need a product and why this product is better than the rest. in a sense, is mind control. No, obviously it's not like the mind control we think of, the sci-fi movies, like I'm going to, through the computer, tell you what you're going to do and you're going to do it.
Subliminal message is more...
Yeah, exactly. It's much more subliminal. It's not as in your face, and you don't even notice it. Most people don't notice it. So...
Well, do you think that the government had kind of pushed this to, like, through the news media to start doing that type of mind control since they had done these experiments to begin with? Do you think that they had some control over that?
I mean, it's probable. Way back when, if you're thinking like in the 1970s and they were already starting to push some of this stuff, it's very probable. But I can't say one way or the other whether or not, it's a fact. But there's obvious connections. So
yeah. That's kind of where I'm going with this, because like what they did with these experiments, and I actually found another project that was completely separate from MK Ultra, but they had actually started experimenting with psychic phenomenon, and if that could truly help them get a one up on their enemies and that sort of thing, and they eventually came to the conclusion that they can't come to the conclusion that psychic phenomenon is true or false, because at the particular time of the experiment they didn't have the means to look into it, which, I mean, nowadays we still don't have the means to look into scientifically. I mean, so it's interesting that they had done all these different experiments, especially to unwitting candidates, and some of the people that I came across, there was actually a 10 Real Victims article. One of them was actually the guy that wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Ken Kesey. And I mean, we've all read that book if you went through school in our era. I don't know if they're still using that piece of literature. But he was supposedly a part of it, started being exposed to LSD and other psychedelics. Another one was Whitey Bulger, who was an infamous gangster, and eventually arrested in 2011, but he was exposed to LSD testing. Robert Hunter from the Grateful Dead, and there's a couple others here. Harold Blower, who is a professional tennis player, or was. So these people were getting exposed, and they're actually well known today. One thing that shut down the MK Ultra project was these CIA agents actually started testing on each other. I don't know if it was as a joke at first, like, hey, let's see what George does when he gets LSD in his system. Do you think he'll freak out? Do you think he'll freak out? I bet no. What do you think happened when they did that? Do you think that it destabilized so much that higher ups started getting pulled into this from the CIA, and that's why they shut it down? Or,
well, sure. I mean, if they're going to start if they're going to start giving LSD to those who are supposed to be running the program, then obviously the program is flawed already, because anyone who's on LSD or any other type of drug is incapable of fully functioning under the situations that they should be functioning, if that makes sense. It's just like, don't drink and drive. If you're under the influence, you can't focus. You're not as aware to certain situations or to certain things around you. There's a lot of things that go into it. You can completely corrupt the entire program. That's exactly what happened, because they are taking LSD themselves. The whole program is corrupt, and anything that's, I'm sure they went to a point like, okay, well, when did they start taking this drug and doing this and doing that, to try to find where they have to start over, because there's going to be a certain line. Anything after where the personnel takes LSD, anything after that is just, you got to throw it out. You can't trust any of it, because you never know what's real and what's not, or what's true and what's fake, so on and so forth. So,
well, and it's something that struck me as odd with this whole Stranger Things series, was that they kind of incorporated two separate programs. There was a third, but the third was a subcategory of MK Ultra, and it was an interesting concept that the experiments of MK Ultra created the psychic kid who was a part of the third project that was not a part of MK Ultra at all. In retrospect of the experiments, what types of problems do you think offspring from these poor experimented people, what would have happened? Do you think there would have been any awful side effects from these different experiments for their offspring?
Oh, sure. I mean, you're talking about giving people drugs so there's one case, supposedly, and of course, we don't know if these cases are legitimate or, if they've been worked in somehow. Some of these files that you find online can just be, who knows. But apparently, there was one case in which 7 volunteers in Kentucky were given LSD for 77 consecutive days. That's a long time to be on LSD every single day. And just like you see in today's time, today, look at people on heroin, looking at people on a number of different drugs that are not only illegal but are very life-threatening. I'm not counting marijuana at this point because marijuana is illegal for a reason. But I'm talking about the big boys, basically. The things that marijuana leads to. And these people, they have kids, and these kids are basically, they're born way too soon. Some of them they die, on their way. They're way underweight. They've got a number of different medical issues. There was a case of 2 people on heroin who had, like a husband and wife, both on heroin, had a kid, and the kid was addicted to heroin straight out and born into the world. I mean, that's not a good thing. And so if that's happening now, then of course anyone who's been experimented on during the MK Ultra project is most likely going to find birth defects later on in life if they were to have kids. So
yeah, one thing that I don't know why I find these things on days or weeks that we're doing specific topics, but not to go off on a rabbit trail here, is there's been a lot of proof that immunizations is causing autism. Now, and there's scientific proof behind this. There are scientists who have put evidence into effect that say, yes, there are immunizations that are causing autism. Today, I saw a video with Penn and Teller, the magic group, Penn and Teller, that were saying, oh, no, that's a bunch of malarkey. See this group? This is the group without immunizations. This group that's protected by this glass thing here is immunizations. Look at this. I moved this glass thing. One fell off. Oh, only 1 in a million, not 1 in 4 that people are saying nowadays. So there's a lot of government propaganda now in this day and age, even saying, oh, the stuff we're doing to you is harmless. There's nothing wrong with what we're doing. You're fine. Just keep living your life the way that you're living. Don't worry about it.
Right.
So, some of the stuff that I came across, like I said at the beginning, there was a part in the MK Ultra's project, which actually was a subcategory, and this was the deprivation tanks that they would put people in. They would put people into tanks, wrap their hands, or tie a blindfold around their eyes and muffle their ears. All they didn't do was gag them. And what this was supposed to do is show the effects of stimulation deprivation on the human mind. And they eventually came to the fact that drug-induced manipulation was less effective than the mental or emotional abuse that they did on these projects. And I don't know how some of these people survived. The one article that I came across had said that a lot of the people that had done it, after only 3 days, they're like, sorry, I can't do this anymore. This is not healthy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that a lot of this stuff that they were doing has caused some of the mental disorders that we have today? Or do you think these mental disorders had gone on prior to that?
No, these mental disorders went on prior, way prior before this. I mean, because to say that would just say that since the 1970s, the people who were pulled into the experimentations would have had to have so many generations of children that it would have, been widespread around the world to such an extent of what we're seeing today. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It's just there's not enough time between the 1970s and 2016 to have that wide of a spread in regards to mental disorders. So, yeah, mental disorders, any mental disorders have been around way before the MK Ultra program began.
Okay. Do you think that any of this could have, say, for example, somebody hadn't had symptoms of a particular disorder, or maybe this had caused them to go insane because of, for example, the deprivation tanks? Do you think that would have been a case there where these certain individuals, not their offspring, but them themselves, had ended up in a mental asylum because of these things?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, say PTSD, for example. It's very. There's a lot of people out there in America who are like, "Oh, it's not the same. It's not the same." Shut up. It's very close. I mean, seriously, it's going to war, seeing your buddies get killed, killing people, so on and so forth. You could end up with PTSD for obvious reasons. Same thing if you're being tortured day in and day out. If you're literally being tortured, being fed drugs, being put in these situations that you really should not be in, the human body is not meant to be in. I mean, you can easily snap and go crazy.
Yeah.
Depending on what your mental state was before even applying. I don't know if there were applications that you had to fill out saying, I'm 100% healthy, this, that, so on and so forth. Some of the people who had joined in on this MK program and became victims, there's a very good possibility that they had already had mental disorders. And so for someone like me, for example, with OCD and all that, and anxiety and depression, going into MK Ultra probably isn't a good idea. That's just going to screw me up that much more. So I think it's very safe to say that some of these people had ended up in psych wards at some point. Whether or not they stayed there, who knows? But
yeah. So, trying to think of where to go here, because I mean, it is a very small topic. What are your thoughts on all the research that we had come across? Like, do you think, and these documents have been leaked, but how true are they? Do you think the government really could have been in on this? Do you think that the CIA was working alone? What do you think?
I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, I think the CIA is more than capable of doing it on their own without the permission of anyone else within the United States. Our government often does things that the president doesn't even know about. That's a fact. I mean, there's really, there's laws, but these laws are very rarely followed, I think, when it comes to cases like this. So yeah, I think it's very probable that the CIA worked it all themselves. And as far as I know, I don't know if there's been any class action lawsuits at all against the CIA for, participating in such a program and developing such a program. I don't know. I don't think anyone is suing for it for obvious reasons. It's the CIA. Where are you going to get with that? But I don't see the government, getting down to business and arresting people and putting people on trial for this program either. As far as I'm concerned, there's probably not enough evidence to support whether or not these experiments were even illegal. I mean, I know they say that they were, and that there were some experiments that were illegal, but knowing just exactly how many experiments there were, that I would doubt they didn't keep many records of it.
Yeah. One thing that I forget who I had talked to about it, but it's one of those things that, you know, in the media today, we're being told that we're being conditioned, that we're being manipulated, like you said, with the subliminal messaging, and it makes you wonder, like with shows with Archer and Stranger Things, they're exposing the world to the MK Ultra project. What do you think? I mean, is there any nefarious means behind that? Do you think it's just a way, an outlet, if you will, to come up with fictional criteria to do films? What are your thoughts
for the MK Ultra project?
Yeah, like, do you think that, like, for some podcasters, they have said, you know, we're being exposed to this to numb us? Do you think putting the MK Ultra project into certain TV shows is just numbing us, and we're like, oh, okay, yeah, it happened, and, you know, it's bad, but what are you going to do? Or is it just creative minds just coming up with ideas?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I do not think under any circumstance that there's, like, the Illuminati, for example, converting people or pulling people to the side in the creative industry and telling them, hey, you need to put this in your movie. And I don't think there's people in the industry who are part of the Illuminati who are saying, hey, we need to put this into the movie so that we can condition the rest of the country and the world. There are brilliant creative people out there who clearly come up with this stuff on their own. And just look you look at you and I, for example, you know, the way you write your stories, the way I write my films. I mean, we're picking up pieces that we're basically taking ideas from pieces that we've either read for the radio show, or that we've seen on TV, or we've done this, done that. The fact that we're even talking about the MK Ultra program is based on the fact that we watched a television show. No one manipulated us into doing that. We just chose to do that. We didn't have to, but it's something interesting. And, you know, it's something that you and I could both use in our stories. There's plenty of things that we've talked about that I use in my stories. And so I truly do not believe that there's some kind of, you know, big bad source that's out to purposely manipulate via television, and hence condition the human mind so that it's not as big of a deal later on. I just don't believe that when it comes to the creative license that people have when it comes to filming. Now, I'm not saying there isn't someone in some way trying to manipulate us. I mean, Satan does it on a daily basis. But, you know, I'm sure there's people out there, the media, for example, like just the media, the news is the biggest culprit by far. And what's interesting about that is that the media, compared to television, like movies, we still consider media. Let me rephrase that. Not media. Let's say news networks. The news networks, compared to television, compared to movies, television and movies are being written by one or two people at most. Maybe there's a group of people for television shows. They're going up with ideas based on their own. There's a lot of research that goes into it. They usually take it to different production companies, and of course they have to do rewrites here and there, and either they do it or they don't. You know, it's in the end, it's really up to the writer, and it's based on the contract that they have with the company that they're going to, the production company. The news networks, on the other hand, are constantly fed information as they speak. And you may notice, like, when the news anchors are speaking, they have earpieces. And I would say that there's easily somebody talking from the other side of the camera telling them, hey, this is going on. Okay, let's do this, let's do that. Sell it a little more. Let's make people scared. Why though? Because it raises concern. It gets people to talk about it on social media, which then spreads it even more, and it becomes a much better story, brings in more money because people start researching it. It's crazy. It's a mess, really, is what it is. America at this current moment in history is, I believe, chaos. Straight and simple. That's the type of world we live in, a world of chaos. You never know what's really going on. It's just... I don't even know if I answered your question, but...
No, yeah, it made sense. And it's just funny that you brought that up, because that's a very true fact. We are in a midst of chaos. I believe that for sure.
All right, folks, so we're going to take our second and last break of the evening. You are listening to Paratruth Radio, and we will be right back after Justin's Paranormal Headlines.
And now, Paratruth Radio's Paranormal Headlines.
What's going on, Parafans? Justin here with your Paranormal Headlines, and these headlines are from unexplainedmysteries.com. Is Proxima Centauri home to a second Earth? Scientists have allegedly discovered a potentially habitable planet within a neighboring star system. Astronomers have detected thousands of new planets over the last few years, but while many of them have the potential to be habitable, most are too far away for us to ever actually visit. This, however, may soon be set to change thanks to the apparent discovery of an Earth-like world in orbit around Proxima Centauri, a red dwarf star situated just 4.25 light-years away. The find has yet to be formally confirmed, as scientists are still investigating it. However, there is a rumor that something official will be announced before the end of this month. According to German weekly Der Spiegel, the planet, which exists in its star's habitable zone, was identified using a reflecting telescope at the European Southern Observatory. The discovery of a possible planet around Proxima Centauri is very exciting, Professor Philip Lubin at the University of California told Universe Today in an email. It makes the case of visiting nearby stellar systems even more compelling, though we know there are many exoplanets around other nearby stars, and it is very likely that the Alpha Centauri system will also have planets. Right now, all we can do is wait and see if something about the discovery is actually announced. But if an Earth-like world really has been found so close by, then it could surely be one of the most important astronomical discoveries of recent times. Weird googly-eyed squid found on sea floor. A recent deep-sea expedition off the coast of California has revealed a rather unusual-looking creature. Discovered by the research vessel EV Nautilus, the peculiar purple cephalopod looks a bit like a cartoon character thanks to its large googly eyes, which almost appear to be painted on. A member of the Rosia pacifica, or stubby squid species, the cute little creature was discovered around 900 meters under the sea by researchers using a remote-operated submersible vehicle. Stubby squids can be typically found across the northern Pacific and grow up to 11 centimeters in length. And this has been Justin with your Paranormal Headlines.
This was a segment of Paratruth Radio's Paranormal Headlines.
What's up, folks? Welcome back to Paratruth Radio. My name is Eric.
And I'm Justin.
And we are talking about the MK Ultra program that was developed by the CIA in, was it the 1950s?
Yep.
Interesting. I can't talk. Folks, here's something you need to understand. When you're doing a radio show, choose water, maybe some light juice. Don't choose Coke or Pepsi because you get this caramelization in your mouth and it's really difficult to talk.
Yeah, but I can understand that. You get the sugary taste and it's kind of bleh, so you're trying to lick it out of your mouth.
Lick it out of your mouth. I'm going to lick this out of my own mouth. It's kind of gross if you're licking something out of someone else's mouth, by the way. Please don't do that. That's disgusting.
So yeah, MK Ultra, folks. I honestly think that a lot of the stuff that went down had manipulated a lot of people back then. There's a lot of stuff going on today that kind of suggests mind control. Like I said earlier, the Black Lives Matter, the Civil War possibly coming. I honestly, I've actually thought about that after you'd mentioned it last week, and I truly believe that we are possibly coming to that point in some type of a war. It could be World War III for all we know. With either of these people that are being voted in, I believe that's a very good possibility. Is there a lesser evil here? I don't know. But, I truly believe Trump is probably going to win just because of his different statements that he's made that has caused so much ruckus that people are like, maybe he's better than the one that leaked emails out to our enemies.
I mean, it would make sense, to be honest, though, but I don't know.
But, the MK Ultra project was a horrible thing, and, is our government still doing experiments on unwitting U.S. citizens today? I honestly believe it's possible. Where is it going? I don't know. Is it hurting people? I don't know. What are your final thoughts?
I don't know if the program itself is going. There may be elements of the program that are still up and running. I think there's obviously some type of mind control going on around the world, not just the United States. But this is definitely a worldwide situation. And honestly, I just don't really know. I mean, I don't know where to go with this. There's plenty of information on it, not enough to prove or disprove the actual claims of it. I don't know. I definitely do think there's elements, and I definitely see it in the world, the type of mind control, but I don't think it's quite the same as, the program states that was happening. So.
Oh, okay. All right, folks. Next week, we've got Nick Redford coming back on with us. He's one that was on with us a while back, actually, within our first year. But this time, he's going to be talking about his book, The Monster Book. And it's about creatures, beasties, and fiends of nature. Last time we had him on, we talked about secret societies. So it'll be a different change of pace and more up our alley than the secret societies. So look forward to that. And any updates, news that you need to share?
Nope.
Okay. All right, folks. Until next week, where you will find us, same time, same channel. My name is Justin.
And I'm Eric.
Peace. If you enjoyed this episode of Paratruth Radio, and you would like to listen to it again, or are interested in listening to any of our past episodes, then you can listen to them on HD at our website, paratruthradio.com.
And you can also find us at Stitcher, Blueberry, TuneIn, iTunes, Spreaker, and YouTube.
And of course, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for brand new updates of our show every day.